Well, guys, with the summer TV season finally over and the fall TV season rapidly approaching, it is now that time again for me to do my top 10 most anticipated shows of fall 2019, which surprisingly isn't nearly as packed as that of the summer. You know, the summer I did a top 20 because there were so many, but this fall, while there definitely is a good selection of stuff that I'm excited for, it's not enough to do a full-on top 20 list, but either way, you know, I'm really excited to get into this video for sure. Fall TV season is upon us. It's going to be crazy. Now, I'll just say it right now. Yes, there are quite a few shows you probably would expect to be in here. Mr. Robot, The Crown, a couple of Miss Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, but these are shows I'm not caught up on. So because of that, I don't feel like I could fairly put them in there. Trust me, if it was up to me, if that was the case, Mr. Robot would absolutely be number one. I am very much looking forward to that final season. It's one of my favorite shows on TV, but I just have yet to finish season 3, so I don't think I could justifiably put down that one as number one. So that's not going to be here. The large majority of this list are actually going to be new shows. There's quite a lot coming out that I'm very excited for, but either way, before we get into it, I do have quite a lot of honorable mentions here for sure. Now, I'll just say it right now, a show that you probably are expecting for me to have in these honorable mentions is American Horror Story. This season's not even in my honorable mentions. I honestly think this season looks pretty bad. Look, I really love American Horror Story a lot. It's a show I look forward to every single year. But upon, you know, especially the past few years, it's very much been hit or miss. It's gone from a show that I think is like one of the best on TV to one that's much more hit or miss that I watch because I think, okay, this could be the next great season. This season, I'm not feeling it at all. Look, I love the fact that they're trying to get in new talent. You know, Evan Peters and Sarah Paulson not being the center of it, I actually do like. It's a good way of, you know, keeping the show fresh and ushering in new talent. But the fact that this entire season is just going to be like a slasher movie, it feels cheap, it feels very rushed, and considering that we just had their biggest season yet, which yes, was a disappointment, but I at least give them points for doing something that ambitious, and the follow-up is something this generic, that is very disappointing for sure. I feel like American Horror Story, it's never been about just playing into horror tropes. It's always been about the characters, and by having a season like this where it's basically just going to be like Friday the 13th, it does not really feel like this is the right direction to go. I like the 80s feel. You can set in the 80s. I have no problem with that. But just the whole season, one, I've heard people say this, it very much does feel like a self-parody. Like, it feels like if SNL were to do, like, a spoof of American Horror Story, like, this is what it would be. Two, it just doesn't sound like a very interesting season. I think it's pretty obvious Emma Roberts is going to be the one to live, and John Carroll Lynch is probably going to be the killer. But again, that's just me speculating. If not, then cool. But I can tell you this right now, unlike last season, I do not plan to review this show weekly. I just don't really see a reason to. Hey, maybe if the season premieres really great, that'll change. But as of right now, yeah, this ain't it, Chief. So it's nowhere in my honorable mention, sadly. I'd love to include it. I really do love this show, but this season, not feeling it at all. But with that said, now let's get into my honorable mentions, which I have them in the order that they're going to be released. So I do have Wu-Tang: An American Series, The Spy, Criminal, Cake, Godfather of Harlem, Primal, Treadstone, Living with Yourself, Modern Love, Catherine the Great, Mrs. Fletcher, For All Mankind, C, Dickinson, Snoopy in Space, and finally The World According to Jeff Goldblum. So those are all of my honorable mentions. But either way, guys, we're going to get into it right now, starting off with my number 10.
Excuse me, is there somewhere you're supposed to be?
Broadway.
Alright, look, obviously, I know you guys are going to give me weird looks and things like that. I don't think I need to justify this really at all. You guys know I'm a huge musical fan. It's something that I've always had a vested interest in. It's something I will always have a vested interest in. You know, when there are musicals out, I'm always really excited. And one of the big components for that is actually High School Musical. I watched it at a very young age. It's still one of the most nostalgic things for me ever. I can't possibly dislike those movies. As cheesy as they may be, I love it. I really do love it. And this show, I gotta say, I'm really impressed by what I'm seeing here. I really thought I'd have to kind of like justify why this is a number 10, but I don't really think I do. What I think this show's doing a really great job with is that it is taking the High School Musical property, but it's doing its own thing with it. It's not trying to remake High School Musical. It's more of a celebration and the cultural impact and things like that, and I think that's a really interesting idea. The characters here, I think, are all going to be a lot of fun. I'm definitely interested in seeing what we're going to get into here. It looks really funny as well, definitely. Like, I was laughing a lot more than I was expecting to in just this trailer alone. So yeah, that looks really great. I like that they're doing their own thing. I hope that it doesn't try to get too melodramatic, though. I hope that it walks a fine line between those two things, because I am worried about that with any sort of teen drama and things like that. But I feel like they're in the right hands here, and I like that Disney is actually being kind of risque. Like, I think that's actually a really interesting idea, and that's something that you can use Disney Plus for, is that you can say things on Disney Plus that you can't say on Disney, which is interesting, especially since they've been promoting it as a family property, and having a character say shit is kind of negates the purpose of that, but whatever, I'm into it for the most part. Just hearing these characters singing Stick of the Status Quo at the end, that alone has me sold. That is enough a reason to have this at number 10. I think this is going to be a lot of fun for sure. I am very much awaiting this series. I love the fact that it's not a continuation of the High School Musical series. It's more just about people putting on High School Musical and, you know, for their school play and how much it affects them and how much they love the show. I think there's a lot that you can really do with that. The interpersonal character relationships are things I'm very excited to get into. So overall, I'm really excited for the show. I like the documentary feel of it as well. And personally, I actually like the title. I've heard a lot of people say, oh, it's redundant, but I feel like if someone were to make a real docu-series like this, they would give it a really stupid title like this. I mean, most docs like that are highly just self-indulgent, and they try to be really just, you know, they try to do something really weird, and I feel like that's a good opportunity for this for sure. So I'm excited to see how this turns out. I think this could be a really fun series for sure. So for all those reasons, it is definitely my number 10.
I can't do this without you.
No matter what you choose, you'll come out bloody.
Now, this one you're probably expecting to be maybe a little further higher up the list, and yeah, I mean, initially making this list, I thought it'd be higher as well, but really, at the end of the day, I mean, that doesn't change the fact that I'm still really hyped for The Witcher, as I'm sure many people are. I mean, just seeing Henry Cavill in something, especially since I think he is a very talented actor, I just don't think, you know, things like Superman, I don't really think that suited him all that well. So I like the fact that he's getting away from that, he's focusing more on serious work, and I think this looks like a really interesting show for sure. But I also think that they're making a really wise decision in making this based on the books and not based on the video game, because it immediately is going to, you know, it's immediately going to drown out all of the endless, like, oh, this is a, you know, this is a video game adaptation, that means it's gonna suck, that means it's gonna suck. So I'm glad that they're doing that. And I like that they're definitely going with that approach. I think the show looks like a very interesting one for sure. Our main character here especially very much fascinates me. I like how much they're keeping hidden in the trailer. Really, my only worry is that I'm just worried that it's trying to be a little too much like Game of Thrones, but overall, I think this could be a really thrilling show. It's definitely a big show for Netflix, and I hope that this turns out much better than their last, like, epic fantasy series tried to, because we know that died out pretty quickly, but it's got Henry Cavill behind it, it's got a really great budget, it's got a really interesting story, it looks very thrilling, so that alone, I think, is enough of a reason to put it at number 9. I don't exactly know when this is coming out. There actually isn't a release date for it yet. I'm hearing some people say December, but nothing's confirmed. But either way, I'm definitely excited for this one. Now, I know I'm going to contradict myself because I said any show I didn't finish is going to be on here, but Castle Rock is an anthology series, so that's the only exception. Just the idea of this being a adaptation of Misery, and basically seeing what happened to Annie Wilkes after Misery, I think is a really cool idea, and I'm excited to see what they do with that. From what I saw, really love the first season of Castle Rock. I thought it was really creative. I thought that we had some really interesting characters, that an absolutely star-studded cast, and I was really excited to see what they ended up, what they ended up doing with it. And I thought it was really great for the most part. I still got to finish it, of course, but of what I saw, I was overall very impressed by it. This season, I think, could honestly be even better, because you're going off a property that is very well known, but they're doing something different with it. Like, sure, she is Annie Wilkes, but she's actually this nurse, and she's stuck in Castle Rock, and she has this daughter, who's played by Elsie Fisher, who, really great to see her doing other work, for sure. But then you also have this other family that is somehow going to be intertwined. So yeah, there's just a lot of possibilities for what they can do here. And I think having this as a TV show, we're going to be able to flesh out the character of Annie Wilkes a little bit more. I've always been very fascinated by this character, as scary as she can be. I like the fact that we're going to have a different interpretation of her. You know, that's something that works with King's stories so well, is that his stories are so complex in that way. You can have so many different interpretations, and I'm interested in seeing what they decide to do with a character like Annie Wilkes, especially when she doesn't have someone, she doesn't have someone like she does in the original film. I think that's a very interesting idea. She doesn't have a, what was his name? Paul Sheldon. He's not in here. It's a completely different story. So that alone has me very excited for sure. I'm pretty sure they're going to try to get something like that, but it's clear that's not the story that they're trying to tell. It's going to be something a little bit different, and I'm excited to see what they do with it for sure. I think whatever they have in store, I'm very much on board with, and I think this could be a really thrilling season. Again, we don't know a lot about it, but the cast here, I mean, Lizzie Kaplan, I already said Elsie Fisher, Paul Sparks, Tim Robbins doing another Stephen King property, really cool to see, Barkhet Abdi, I mean, just a really talented cast here overall. I think this is going to be a really great season for sure. I'm not sure if it's going to be as good as season 1. I think it has the potential to be for sure, but overall, I am very excited to see what they do here, and definitely just the fact that it's going to be based on Misery alone, one of my absolute favorite Stephen King stories, that is enough of a reason to put it at number 8. Cannot wait for this show.
I want that trophy.
So, as I've said before, Ryan Murphy is a very talented creator. Anything he does, I'm pretty much hyped for, but I'm also pretty sure that the reason that this season of American Horror Story looks pretty rushed is because he's clearly focusing on his Netflix stuff, which looks far more interesting, like The Politician here. I mean, this show seems like Ryan Murphy's bread and butter. This is everything we've come to expect from him. It looks really quirky, it looks really out there, but it also looks like it's going to be a really great social commentary on political political systems and what people do to curry favor in that way, and what people do to make sure that things go the way they want them to, especially for Ben Platt, who I am so happy to see is continuing to get work after Dear Evan Hansen for sure. I think he's such a talented actor. And the rest of the cast here, I mean, Gwyneth Paltrow, Zoe Deutsch, Lucy Boynton, Laura Dreyfus, also from Dear Evan Hansen, coincidentally, and Jessica Lange, of course, is coming back for this as well, which is really cool. It's great to see Jessica Lange continuing to work with Ryan Murphy, but also the fact this is going to be on Netflix. I could really see this, similar to When They See Us earlier this year with Ava DuVernay, being a career-altering move for Murphy. There's so much more he can get away with here. There's so much more he can do here. And I'm excited to see the way that this show overall turns out. I think this is going to be really great for sure. I love the story that they're telling here. I think it just looks like a lot of fun. And just seeing the lengths that these students are willing to go, just something as simple as student body president, I think is a really fun idea. I think there's going to be a lot of interesting stuff this show hits on for sure, and I really hope that it is as good as everyone thinks it's going to be. I think the show has tons of potential. It's got great talent behind it. It's got a really interesting premise, and I just really hope it delivers in all the right ways. So definitely The Politician, number 7.
This is not something people get over. This is something they carry with them forever.
Even with people that you can trust, if the truth is inconvenient, they don't believe it.
Now, yes, have we been getting a lot of movies and TV shows lately tackling, like, the Me Too movement and things like that? Yes, but I feel like because of how many we've been getting, a story like Unbelievable is one that needs to be told. As sad as it is, even though, yes, that is still going on, there are still people that are denying stories like this, and I think that that's what this show is going to do really well. It shows how easily we are to debunk stories because we don't want to believe things, but in reality, that story did happen, and I think it's going to be a really interesting look at what someone like our character Marie here, what she really does go through, and I'm interested in seeing what they do with that, what they're going to do with the cops as well, how they're going to be on her side, how they're trying to help her through this. It's going to be a hard watch for sure, but it's one that I think is very important, and I think it is going to be one that is very well told, and I mean, the talent behind this is just absolutely ridiculous. Toni Collette, Merritt Weaver, and then Caitlin Dever as our main teen here. I mean, that alone gives me enough of a reason to watch the show, but then you just factor in the whole story here. I think this could be one of the most eye-opening shows of the entire year, and yes, like I've said, similar to how last year we had a lot of movies dealing with, you know, racism. The thing is, though, last year, each one was able to do its own thing in that way. They were able to tell their own story with it, and I think Unbelievable's gonna do that with, you know, rape here. I think they're gonna find a way to tell this story in a different light. It's not just gonna be about someone who was raped, it's about someone who everyone is denying the fact that it happened. They don't believe her, and we have to try to prove, like, how she did go through this, and that this did actually happen to her. Again, it's definitely gonna be a hard watch, but it's one that I am definitely very interested in for sure. It looks like it could be one of the best shows of the entire year, especially when you have actors like Collette and Weaver at the helm. I mean, those two actresses, like, on that caliber, some of the best working today, that alone has me hyped, but just factor in the story here. I think this could be a really, really great show for sure, so definitely deserves to be on number 6.
Bounty hunting is a complicated profession. Don't you agree?
I mean, obviously, this was going to be on my list somewhere. Now, you probably think it's a little bit higher, but that, again, similar to The Witcher, it doesn't change the fact I'm still hyped out of my mind for The Mandalorian. It also changed the fact that we have never seen anything like this on TV before. There's been Star Wars TV shows, but nothing to this effect. And what I love about this show is that they're able to keep the Star Wars mythology and the Star Wars brand name out there, but it doesn't just focus on the Skywalker saga. It focuses on its own thing, and I'm really excited to see what they do with it here. This show looks like it's going to be way darker. It's going to be way more thrilling than anything we've seen before, and it also is, to my knowledge, all original material. I don't think this is based, I could be wrong about that, but I don't think it's based on any, like, the novels or things like that, so I'm excited to see what they really end up doing here. It's going to take place like 5 years after Return of the Jedi and things like that. But again, other than that, it is basically doing its own thing. And I'm excited to see what they do with that. And then the talent behind the show, again, is just crazy. Pedro Pascal, Gina Carano, Nick Nolte, Giancarlo Esposito, Taika Waititi. And then somehow, I don't know how they got him, but they did get Werner Herzog to play the villain here. So yeah, I think this is going to be something really great. And then having Jon Favreau behind this, I mean, that's when you know you're dealing with something great. Jon Favreau is a guy who has so much passion. As long as we're not talking about Lion King, he's a guy who usually puts passion into everything he touches. He definitely has a real vision for this show. Again, we don't know too much about it. We just know that it basically is doing its own thing. But The Mandalorian does look badass. The character himself, the show also does look badass, but the character himself looks very stoic, looks very quiet. I hope that they do their own thing. I'm hearing rumors that, like, oh, he's going to be Boba Fett. I don't think he's going to be Boba Fett. I think that's just wishful thinking. I think it's doing its own thing. I think that it's going to not cater to fan service. At least I hope it doesn't. I hope that it does its own thing. I hope that it tells a very unique story, and I hope it finds a way, again, to expand the universe a bit. You know, you don't have to make everything about the Skywalkers. Do your own thing, and I think this could be one of the most thrilling and just most action-packed shows of the entire year. I'm very excited to see the way this show turns out for sure. You know, obviously the Star Wars lore, it's coming to a close with Rise of Skywalker, but Mandalorian is a great way to keep it alive, and I hope that it's as great as we all think it's going to be. So without a doubt, it is definitely my number 5.
The part you guys never seem to realize is that you don't have the power anymore. And frankly, I've let you bozos handle this long enough. We are doing this my way. What happened to your TV?
We had a disagreement.
First of all, no, I did not intentionally put a Disney Plus show and an Apple TV Plus show back to back. That's just the way it turned out. But regardless, I mean, what a crazy month November is going to be. There's a lot coming out on November 1st, but none of the Apple TV Plus shows interest me in the way the morning show does. The other ones, again, they're all my honorable mentions. I'm excited for them. But the morning show is of a different caliber. This, to me, looks like it could be their show. This could be the show that really just out of the gate completely puts Apple TV Plus on top, just like I think The Mandalorian is going to do for Disney Plus for sure. And not just because of how relevant of a story it is. I mean, obviously, yes, the idea of this newscaster that's worked there for years, and then he's fired because of sexual misconduct. Yes, we've seen that story done before, but it's not really focusing on that. It is, but it's also focusing on the interworkings of someone that's trying to retain their position. Jennifer Aniston here, she's trying to retain her position. She wants to make sure that she can still work as a news anchor, and I'm excited in seeing how that all goes down for sure. And then just having Jennifer Aniston, Reese Witherspoon, and Steve Carell, that cast alone is so great. It's great to see Steve Carell back on TV for sure. I'm excited to see what they do with that. Jennifer Aniston and Reese Witherspoon, I'm very excited to see those two work together for sure. And just the relevancy of it all, yes, that definitely is there, but just the premise alone has me very excited. I think this could be a really compelling show. Like I said, I think this could be the big show for Apple TV Plus, and I think it's going to be one of those things where people are not going to be that excited for Apple TV Plus, but then they hear about this show, and then all of a sudden they're going to be like, wow, I got to jump on Apple TV Plus immediately because the morning show's on there. And I really hope that's what this show could be, because everything I'm seeing here, this looks like high caliber. This looks like it's going to be everything that we want. This looks like it's going to be something that is unlike other shows that are on streaming right now. And Apple TV Plus has said this, like, they're delivering the best. And I mean, it makes sense, because while other networks have to deal with budgets, Apple has all the money in the world, so they can do basically whatever they want. I mean, C, for example, is like one of the most expensive shows ever made, but again, Apple can definitely afford it, and I think the same can be said for the morning show here. They are delivering the best in quality, and I'm excited to see the way this turns out. I think this looks highly compelling. I think it's going to be a really interesting look at just the way popular news programs work, for sure, and I think just in general, with the talent involved, the premise, the timeliness, the morning show to me just looks like it could be one of the best shows of the entire year, and so definitely it is my number 4.
How am I supposed to trust you when no one tells me the truth?
It's time.
I know.
Holy shit, am I hyped for this show. I mean, the second I heard that we had a show coming out that had Daphne Keane, James McAvoy, and my boy Lin-Manuel Miranda, that alone had me hyped. But then when you factor in just the premise of all this, the world of the Golden Compass and things like that, that also has me very excited. Now, I haven't seen the original movie. I've heard it's basically a train wreck, so I haven't seen that film, but I've always heard people say that the reason that movie was such a train wreck is because this is such a dense world in that way that you need to make it a TV series, and I think them doing that is for sure the right call here. I'm excited to see really what they end up doing with this show. You know, I don't know too much about it overall, but I'm excited to see the way this turns out. I think this looks really compelling. I'm excited to see what they do with the character of Lyra, you know, this orphan, and her kind of going on this adventure. And I will say the visual effects here look pretty top tier. I mean, there is not a second in this show that polar bear does not look real. That polar bear looks like you can just reach out and touch it. Obviously, you don't want to because it's a fucking bear, but, you know, it looks very real in that sense, and I think they're doing a really great job with that. The cast here is just insane. I can't wait to see what they do with all of these great actors. Seeing Daphne Keane in something as well definitely has me very excited here, and I think just in general, this could end up being a really, really great show. HBO, I mean, always delivers the best for me, and this just looks like one of those shows that, again, I don't think a lot of people are hyped for, but I think people are going to start to talk about it, and it could generate a really big following. But also the fact that it already has been renewed for a second season, that's always a good sign in my book, and I hope that that is nothing but confidence for the show. It finally has a release date as well, which definitely has me hyped for sure. So yeah, everything about His Dark Materials, I think, just looks like a really interesting show. And also Lin-Manuel Miranda, seeing him really branch out and doing something like this, something that's not a musical, is a really great idea. He's a great actor. I've always really enjoyed him in his presence. I think he's one of the most charismatic guys working in the industry right now. So I'm excited to see him branch out and do something a little bit more serious, something that, yeah, again, I mean, I adore In the Heights. I adore all the stuff he's done, but it's cool to see him take on something that isn't based on a musical, and he actually has a large role in, because everything else he's done that's not like that, he's had very small parts in, but here, he actually does have a large role, and I'm excited to see what he does in the show for that reason alone. But then having James McAvoy in there, having Ruth Wilson, having Daphne Keane, just has me really hyped for this show. I think there's a lot of potential here for sure, so I think I've made a good enough case for why I am so excited for this show. So definitely His Dark Materials is at number 3.
They can't be who you are if you want to be free.
Of course. The only one in my family who believes in me is the dead one.
For now.
obviously, this is the first fall in a while where BoJack Horseman is not coming out, but honestly, Undone looks like a good placeholder for it. I'm excited to see how the show does turn out. I'm just happy that Raphael Bob Waksberg has another show that he is doing, and I hope that this does turn out well for him because of that. But also just the premise alone. I mean, this looks like one of the most unique shows on TV right now. Just the animation style itself. I talked to a friend about this. It basically is like that movie Waking Life that Richard Linklater did. I never saw that movie, but it does have a very similar style in that way. So I'm excited to see how that turns out here for sure. I think this definitely could be really cool in that way, and I really do like the animation style in the show, but also just the premise of it. It's a really simple premise, you know, it's just this woman, and she finds this way, you know, she gets in this car accident and then finds a way to communicate with her dead father. Has me really interested for sure. I think there's a lot you can do with that premise, but also having Rosa Salazar and Bob Odenkirk in those roles, two very talented actors. I'm excited to see the way that they handle that. Just everything about the show looks so creative, and again, knowing Raphael Bob Waksberg, it's probably going to touch upon some really deep and hard-hitting subjects for sure, and I think this show is going to handle it really well. I hope this show really turns out great for him. I am so hyped out of my mind for it. Ever since I heard about it being a thing, I was very much excited, and again, we don't have BoJack this year, but I think this could be the next best thing. I think this could be a show that is so good, we don't even think about BoJack not being on, because this show will, I think, deliver in the way that I overall want it to. And yeah, so for all those reasons, I think definitely Undone, I think, is definitely going to be a really great show, and hopefully turns out much better than the show that was on Netflix that the animators of BoJack did. I might have liked it, but that didn't turn out so well, you know, that didn't turn out so well ratings-wise, so hopefully Undone does not serve the same fate.
Well, it looks like you got things under control here.
Cool costume. Thanks.
Look, this was pretty obvious, I'm sure, to most people. Oh my god, Kevin, you talk about Damon Lindelof constantly, you talk about how much you love The Leftovers. Obviously, yes, it's gonna be my number one. That was obvious for a while. But I'm sorry, Watchmen just looks so fucking good. If I had to think of a show that I think is going to be the next great show on TV, Watchmen is immediately the one that comes to mind. I mean, I love everything that Lindelof is doing with this. And mainly because of the fact that, you know, he's doing what made The Leftovers so great. He's basically working off book. He's not just recreating the comics here. And we saw that with The Leftovers. Yes, season 1's a really great season, but 2 and 3 shine as much as they do because Lindelof was able to do whatever he wanted, and him continuing to work at HBO, and him continuing to do his own thing with the Watchmen lore. I mean, there's a lot that you can really do here. He is going off of the comic book from what I understand, but this is going to be more of a sequel series in that way, and especially considering the way things left off in that story, there's a lot you can do here, especially when it comes to, I mean, the uprising that's clearly starting because of Rorschach. I'm excited to see what they do with that. Regina King's character is really mysterious, and all the new characters themselves, I mean, most of these guys are completely new, and we don't know what they're really going to add into the show, but the cast here itself, I mean, it's crazy. Besides Regina King, you also have Lily Rose Smith, you have, you know, who else? There's so many actors in the show that you have. You also have Tim Blake Nelson. You got Don Johnson. You got Gene Smart in there. Yahya Abdul-Mateen II. I mean, just a really stellar cast here for sure. Han Chau's in there. But then, of course, the one I'm most interested in is seeing Jeremy Irons as a much older Ozymandias, especially since we know that he himself has caused what occurred at the end of the comic, and him basically him, them blaming all of that essentially on, on the character of Dr. Manhattan. I think there's a lot that they can really do. Then we already know Dr. Manhattan is going to be in the show from the trailer, so that has me excited. But also factoring what role Ozymandias is going to play, and having Robert Redford be the President of the United States, that's going to be really interesting as well. Just everything about the show has me so excited. I think there is so much potential for what they could end up doing here. I think Lindelof is really just going full. I think he is putting as much effort into this as possible, and I really hope lightning strikes twice here for him. I really hope the show does deliver. I know it's going to deliver. I don't even think there is any question about it. I think the show will absolutely deliver. I think it will be the hit for HBO that they are hoping it would be. Watchmen is a property that I know everyone does hold very closely. And I think Lindelof knows that. I think Lindelof is aware of Watchmen's success and things like that. I think he knows, how it's not a huge brand name or anything, but the people that love it, I mean, are very loyal to this property. So I think for that reason, he's not going to try to tarnish the legacy of it, but he is going to do his own thing. And again, that's what I'm really excited for here, because it is virtually all new territory in that way, and that alone has me very hyped. But the visuals, the story, and then just having Lindelof at the helm, ultimately, Watchmen is absolutely my number one for many reasons and more. And yeah, I mean, I don't know what else I can say about the show that I haven't already. I just cannot wait to see Lindelof back on my TV. I can't wait to see another show that he's involved in. I think he's one of the best creators working today, and I really hope that I can still say that after Watchmen, because I think this is going to be really great for sure. And with that, guys, we are done here. Those are all the shows that I am hyped for this fall. I know there was a lot to get through for sure, but either way, guys, I think it's going to be a really great season for fall TV. But now comes my favorite part of the video, and that is, of course, when I give you guys all of the shows I will be watching this fall. So here is my official schedule. So Sunday nights, I obviously plan on reviewing Watchmen. I'm going to review every single episode of that for sure, because it's Damon Lindelof. I have to. So weekly reviews for that one. Also, I'm going to try catching up on Walking Dead. Don't know if I will on time, and I'm going to try to. Mr. Robot, I will also definitely be catching up. That one I will definitely be catching up on, and I will be doing weekly reviews for that one, so look forward to that. Also, Miss Fletcher, Kidding is another one I'm going to catch up on, and Godfather of Harlem. Monday's pretty straightforward. His Dark Materials, Catherine the Great, and Primal. And then Tuesday, I'm going to catch up on Sorry for Your Loss, so I can get to Season 2, so definitely I'll be reviewing that. Mandalorian, which will also be weekly reviews with, not just myself, I'm going to be with someone else, but you guys will see what I'm talking about when we start those reviews. But also High School Musical, the musical, the series, and The World According to Jeff Goldblum. Wednesday, we American Horror Story 1984, like I said. I'm not going to probably review that one weekly, but I'm obviously going to watch the season because I've seen every single season. Wu-Tang: An American Series, Castle Rock Season 2, and Limetown. Thursday, Creep Show. Friday, I'm going to try to catch up on Titans, but I guess we'll see. Also looking for Alaska, the morning show, all the Apple TV Plus shows. And then I will also be watching, and again, there's a few in here that I'm not fully caught up on, but I do plan on catching up. So I'm also going to be watching Criminal, The Crown, Disenchantment, Living with Yourself, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, Modern Love, The Politician, The Spy, Unbelievable, Undone, and The Witcher. So that's everything I'm going to be watching this fall season. Now, obviously, you guys may be wondering, well, what about all of the major networks like ABC, CBS? Is there any show on there you're looking forward to? I actually have a plan when it comes to network TV pilots, and you guys will see what that is around that time. I'm not going to say just yet, but there's a big reason why they're not on here, and you guys will get to see what I'm talking about for sure. But either way, guys, that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoy it. Comment down below. Let me know which shows you guys are looking forward to this fall. That's it for this video. We'll see you guys in my next video, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.